Hello, you're watching TVP World. This is World Talks. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Overnight, Russia launched a large-scale assault on multiple Ukrainian cities, killing at least 6 people. Ukraine struck back with its own attacks. In the meantime, U.S. Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll held talks with Russian representatives in Abu Dhabi. The negotiations around Washington's revised 28-point peace proposal have intensified, with U.S., EU, and Ukrainian officials calling the Geneva talks constructive. We now turn to Roman Waschuk, former Canadian ambassador to Ukraine, for analysis on these latest developments. Good to have you back on TVP World. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
I want to begin with the latest. I mean, at the moment, with these talks in Abu Dhabi that were held sort of under the radar, how significant are they to this whole ongoing peace settlement roadmap here?
Well, the whole process is extremely messy, so trying to determine which bit will actually work is difficult. We can't be quite sure which bit of the American administration is speaking when. They've changed their story 3 or 4 times over the weekend. We did have this sort of emollient meeting in Geneva where differences were discussed, some were resolved, others were papered over or kicking the can sort of down the hall for later discussion by presidents. And now this Abu Dhabi discussion with the Russians, and some reports say maybe some Ukrainians there as well. So hard to say. Clearly there is a push from Washington. It started off on the wrong foot. Can it be fixed? Can it be made acceptable to not only the Ukrainians, but also the broader European constituency, which was sideswiped by the initial proposals? That remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that it's a messy process, and we have these, as you said, these different point plans floating around. The latest we're kind of hearing is this now revised 19 points. But I want to ask you, because, I mean, you said the Europeans had been, and the Ukrainians had been sidelined a little bit with all this in the last few days. They did have this counter, but if we look at sort of the revised things that are floating around, it seems that there have been revisions to this, and I'm just looking out at some of them. For instance, there's no automatic veto on Ukraine's future NATO membership. The troops cap has been removed. Looking at no free handover of the remaining Donbas territory. So in this case, did the Americans listen more now to the Europeans and their efforts? Were those actually now listened to? Do you think that means there will be more of Europe's input in your mind?
Well, I don't know if you've seen the 19. I haven't yet. I've seen the European counter-proposals, which of course are quite positive from both the Ukrainian and European sides. So the outcome remains uncertain, and the motivations on the American side remain mixed and often seemingly not terribly well grounded. Mm-hmm.
No, well grounded. But at the same time, also, what is the significance? I mean, Mr. Driscoll himself, head of the Army, I mean, this is not a diplomat. His main capacity is as a military man. What does that tell us about, let's say, who's leading these discussions at the moment? Does that have any impact on where this is going in your mind?
It could. He is supposed to be tight with Vice President J.D. Vance, who's been quite vocal on social media, tackling Senator Mitch McConnell, arguing in favor of a fast-track process. So again, it looks like a bit of factionalism in the administration, with Secretary Rubio on one track, and then this sort of vice president plus Army secretary track happening. Whether they can all be reconciled on the American side, where there appears to have been no formal interagency process to launch this initiative in the first place, that is, I think, a bit of a black box or a mystery to certainly outside observers.
Okay. And also talking a little bit about mystery, I want to push that a little bit as a man with a diplomatic cloud of your own experience, looking at how this original peace plan has come together. I mean, the genesis of this, why have the Americans accepted this so quickly, so willingly? And the genesis of it, some say it has come from many of the Russian talking points. So why is Washington pushing this so much?
Because they are public impact and outcomes driven as opposed to geopolitical policy thought process driven. You've seen these reports saying, well, the president heard that there's some initiative. He said, yeah, go ahead. I don't need to know the details, whatever. Whatever is not probably the best basis for resolving complex geopolitical issues. And that's why you have these points that left people super puzzled, such as basing European airplanes in Poland. I think that certainly surprised Poles, and nobody really knows what it means. My interpretation would be that what the Russians were trying to say is no matter how many Gripens or Rafales Ukraine buys, they don't land in Ukraine, they stay in Poland. But who knows what that point really meant.
On that front, though, I want to ask you.
Not consulted, not thought through.
Yeah, exactly. On that point, what exactly does that mean? If we're looking at NATO forces, if we're looking at American forces in general, what does that mean tangibly now in the next few months?
It means that I think some German politicians on the Christian Democrat side have been saying this. It is a decisive moment for Europe. In the original 28 points, probably the most worrying from the broader European point of view would have been the provision that Russia and NATO will have a dialogue with the United States mediating. Which makes it look like the United States is just this, totally unrelated to NATO, just this interested bystander, which will help people chat about issues, as opposed to being the largest and formerly leading power in NATO. So this, the extent to which, frankly, any American guarantee is still valid is out there. And it's time for allies, the Europeans, Canadians, for example, to finally take that on board and be more grown up about taking responsibility for their own defense. Offering an Article 5 light guarantee to Ukraine when the actual Article 5 is undermined by statements like that provision in the 28 points sounds pretty hollow to me.
Mm-hmm. I also want to come back to this point that you raised about Europeans having to wake up, having to do more. I mean, this is a line we've heard quite some time. But just on the basis of it, just as the general question, it seems very much that over not just these last days, but months and unfortunately years of this conflict, we've seen that Europe has positioned itself as very much as a defender more of Ukraine. I mean, at the same time, the United States in the last few months has done quite the opposite. Why this shift, and what has led to that? I know it's a big question, but let's bring it into context of these negotiations.
Well, I mean, let's look at it from an America's perspective. What has this administration been saying about Greenland, about Canada, about Venezuela right now? It has not been saying, let's be very careful about international law and not intervene anywhere, et cetera. It's been saying, let's grab some territory here, let's make something a 51st state then, let's pull an aircraft carrier into the Caribbean and see what happens with Venezuela. So that is not the ideal moral basis for tackling Russian aggression against Ukraine. There is a might makes right attitude in this administration that basically creates a kind of mutual understanding with the Russians, saying, you're big boys with nuclear weapons, so are we, and you get to do stuff in your neighborhood, and so do we. So that is a very dangerous development for any countries that aren't big and nuclear.
Mm-hmm. And also
or even medium-sized they're like France and Britain.
Right. And again, on that European front as well, I mean, we've obviously had a huge focus more on the eastern flank. I mean, significance of, and the profile of Poland in particular has risen. I mean, it's one of the biggest NATO spenders in terms of its military. President Nawrocki of Poland has touted his close connection to Donald Trump as well. So in your mind as a diplomat at this point, why is, let's say, this region not listened to, given that all of the commitments it's made, especially towards the alliance? Is it being consulted in your mind? Why or why not?
Partly because of this, I think, tendency in both Washington and Moscow to only see each other, which is your video there in Alaska is an illustration of that. But also because people in the region, and notably Poland, I'm sorry to say, have been busy fighting domestic wars which have undermined their foreign stature. If you consider, for example, that Poland does not have fully accredited ambassadors in Kyiv or Washington because of internal political squabbling between the cabinet and the president's office, that is kind of like unilateral disarmament, diplomatic disarmament, that makes countries less effective in pursuing their interests.
Mm-hmm. All right, but some might push back on, say that, is that enough of a reason, though, to discount all of the investments, all of the sacrifices, all of the strategic planning that has been done, to then throw it away simply on what you just raised there? Is that enough?
No, of course it isn't. But it limits your ability to capitalize on the investments you've already made. And it's, I certainly would like to see Poland in the front ranks of countries helping to co-decide on these issues. It is a neighbor. It has been the key logistical linchpin. It provided much of the key support in year one. And onwards, continues to make announcements right now. The government, Foreign Minister Sikorsky. So all of those things are very worthy. But this is not an American administration that values contributions in a traditional manner. Mm-hmm. It is more, are you aligned with us in vibe terms or not?
Okay. So just briefly at the end, one sentence. I mean, your experience as a career diplomat, do you see this deadline on Thursday as realistic for reaching some kind of deal?
No. That's a very short answer. I think it will carry on, and I don't see a lightning resolution, even despite all the scurrying back and forth right now.
All right. So really appreciate those insights. We'll see. I mean, this is going to be a whirlwind week for sure, no matter what the outcome. Roman Waschuk there, former Canadian ambassador to Ukraine. Thanks for your insights today.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay tuned right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.